Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
The invention of television has made it possible for us to communicate through a combination of sights and sounds. Modern means of communication have overcome the ancient barriers of time and distance,
in which is visible a whole new era of communication. In one generation, voice and vision have transcended space. Science, engineering, and organization have harnessed the ratio between light and sound.
Do you suffer because your storehouse of words is smaller than you'd like it to be? Well then, hey, don't touch that channel selector. Well then, kids, you don't have to... Hey, I told you not to touch the selector. This is all for you. This is all for you. This is all for you. This is all for you.
Psychological warfare has been waged against America for much of this century. This war for the mind of the public has been facilitated by the emergence of mass media and the transformation of American education by behavioral psychologists. In the book 1984, George Orwell warned that people were in danger of losing their human qualities and freedom of mind without being aware of it while it was happening because of psychological, emotional, and intellectual manipulation. Mind control. Mind control in America. The most effective way to protect yourself from subconscious manipulation is by being aware of how it works. What the conscious mind believes, the subconscious acts on. It works like programming a computer. Information is fed into a computer, and the computer acts on it. However, if the information fed into the computer is wrong, it still acts on it. If a person believes something that is not true, the memory banks of the subconscious mind do not correct the error, but act on it. The theory of cognitive dissonance holds that the mind automatically and involuntarily rejects information not in line with previously accepted thoughts and beliefs. Watching television often produces an altered state of consciousness. Though not consciously perceived, the television screen, while appearing static, actually flickers. Any repeating light or sound pattern can lead you into an altered state. A hypnotist uses patterned speech by varying the pacing and inflection of his voice to induce this state of mind in his subject. It is in this state of mind where one is the most receptive to mental programming. Whether or not the information takes hold in the mind depends on two factors: trust in the source of the information and repetition of the message. Trust in the source of the information induces acceptance of the message as true, even if it is not understood. Repetition of the message embeds it in the subconscious so that acceptance of its truth and accuracy becomes a conditioned response. Thus, this information will be accepted as true without thinking about it whenever it is presented again.
Get ready to read all these words on this page without making a mistake. Look at the letter at the end and remember the sound it makes. Get ready.
Kite.
Yes, kite. Get ready to read this word the fast way. Get ready.
Kid.
Yes, kid. Sound it out. Get ready.
Kid.
Sound it out. Get ready.
Kid.
What word?
Kid.
Yes, kid. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready.
Seal.
What word?
Seal.
Yes, steel. Read these words the fast way. Get ready.
Play.
Yes, playing. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready.
Kite.
Yes, kite. Get ready.
Kit.
Yes, kit. Get ready.
Seal.
Yes, steel. Get ready.
Plane.
Yes, plane. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Boys and girls, get ready.
Kite.
Yes, kite. Get ready.
Kit.
Yes, kit. Get ready.
Seal.
Yes, steel. Get ready.
Plane.
Yes, plane. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Boys and girls, speak the reader up.
Americans are asking, why do they hate us? They hate what they see right here in this chamber. A democratically elected government. Their leaders are self-appointed. They hate our freedoms, our freedom of religion, our freedom of speech, our freedom to vote and assemble and disagree with each other. Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. Either you're with us, either you love freedom and with nations which embrace freedom, or you're with the enemy. There's no in between. You're either with us or you're with the enemy. That's clear. I will continue to make that clear.
We have an obligation to every last victim of this illegal aggression because all of this carnage has been done in our name. Since World War II, 90% of the casualties of war are unarmed civilians, a third of them children. Our victims have done nothing to us. From Palestine to Afghanistan to Iraq to Somalia to wherever our next target may be, their murders are not collateral damage. They are the nature of modern warfare. They don't hate us because of our freedoms. They hate us because every day we are funding and committing crimes against humanity. The so-called war on terror is a cover for our military aggression to gain control of the resources of Western Asia. This is sending the poor of this country to kill the poor of those Muslim countries. This is trading blood for oil. This is genocide, and to most of the world, we are the terrorists. In these times, remaining silent on our responsibility to the world and its future is criminal. And in light of our complicity in the supreme crimes against humanity in Iraq and Afghanistan and ongoing violations of the UN Charter and international law, how dare any American criticize the actions of legitimate resistance to illegal occupation? Our so-called enemies in Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, our other colonies around the world, and our inner cities here at home are struggling against the oppressive hand of empire, demanding respect for their humanity. They are labeled insurgents or terrorists for resisting rape and pillage by the white establishment, but they are our brothers and sisters in the struggle for justice. The civilians at the other end of our weapons don't have a choice, but American soldiers have choices. And while there may have been some doubt 5 years ago, today we know the truth. Our soldiers don't sacrifice for duty, honor, country. They sacrifice for Kellogg, Brown, and Root. They don't fight for America, they fight for their lives and their buddies beside them because we put them in a war zone. They're not defending our freedoms. They're laying the foundation for 14 permanent military bases to defend the freedoms of ExxonMobil and British Petroleum. They're not establishing democracy. They're establishing the basis for an economic occupation to continue after the military occupation has ended. Iraqi society today, thanks to American help, is defined by house raids, death squads, checkpoints, detentions, curfews, blood in the streets, and constant violence. We must dare to speak out in support of the Iraqi people who resist and endure the horrific existence we brought upon them through our bloodthirsty imperial crusade. We must dare to speak out in support of those American war resistors, the real military heroes who uphold their oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, including those terrorist cells in Washington, D.C., more commonly known as the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. Frederick Douglass said, "Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are people who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the roar of its many waters. The struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. Every one of us must keep demanding, keep fighting, keep thundering, keep plowing, keep speaking, keep struggling until justice is served. No justice, no peace. No justice.
Now, I also mentioned, too, that a fellow that has been in touch with me for an awful long time, his brother was in the CIA, or is in the CIA. He will never talk about the CIA to him. He'll never give anything away whatsoever, except one bit of advice. He said, never watch the television. Never watch the television. It's the greatest scientific indoctrination tool ever devised. Haven't you figured that out? It's changed the whole culture of nations, not just one nation. Why do you think it was mandatory that everybody in Britain give access to televisions by the government? Why do you think China is under the same program to get everyone with a TV right now? Because they love to have you entertained. Do you really think that? And India is on the same route as well right now too. Most of your ideas and your opinions and how you emulate, because you emulate things, you mimic what you see. As Charles Galton, Darwin and others have said in the past. It becomes you, you become it. And that's what's happened. It's been very, very, very successful. Never watch the television. You can't watch a movie unless you do it critically. If you watch it critically, not there to enjoy it. Remember what they say, it's your emotions that get you on. And it's interwoven, all these emotional themes all through movies. You're played like a harp. And they embed ideas into you, along with the movies. And predictive programming too. So you'll accept that which is still to come. And you'll behave the same way as the characters in the movie when it comes. Oh well, what can you do? I'll just watch much music or television. Yeah.
Today to meet the woman of my dreams. I've been talking to this girl on the internet for a while. I've actually been trying to save some money to go see this woman.
Did you talk to her online?
I go to the library, believe it or not, to talk to this woman. I met her on MySpace, and she's a very beautiful woman. She's tall, skinny, she's redhead, very beautiful woman.
Why don't we do it this way? Because you've never met her before.
Never met her.
Well, then I'm going to ask you to leave for a few moments, and we'll want to bring her out, let the audience meet her, and then we can both observe you two meeting, which will be nice. And let's bring him back now. Here's Brad.
How you doing? So good to meet you. It's kind of nervous on national TV, I know, but like I wanted to ask, like maybe like you could be my girlfriend.
Well, Brad, I have to tell you, I'm a man.
I'll try anything once.
So, in his book, from the book Behold the Pale Horse, written by William Cooper, a former naval intelligence officer, in regards to a document concerning the American public, it states, diversion is the primary strategy. The simplest method for securing silent weapons and gaining it is to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant of basic system principles while keeping them confused. And this is what these reality shows are doing. Confused about gender, confused about political, confused about your role. You understand what I'm saying? Confused about religion, confused about politics. It says keep them confused, disorganized, and distracted with matters of no real importance. Whereas the media, MEDIA, which stands for Multi-Ethnic Destruction in America, or Maniac European Devils in Action, keeps the adult population's attention diverted from real social issues and captivated by matters of no real importance. It goes on to say, the schools are keep the young public ignorant of real mathematics, real economics, real law, and real
One of the things that surprises a lot of people, and it shouldn't because it's publicly known, is that our education system is not about educating as much as it is about socializing. Like the duckling in the chicken yard. If you take that duckling and raise it with the chickens, it's going to be imprinted, it's going to behave like the chickens. And in that very real sense, we perpetuate this. The danger is we don't just perpetuate it, we don't just enculturate it, but it's the only sane way we see to raise our children. And the result is there's no escaping it.
C.S. Lewis said, when training, which is Skinner, Pavlov, beats education, civilization dies.
He always wears really cool outfits and always is always signing, and that's why we were doing this, so we could be like Hannah Montana.
A document put out 20 years ago by Dr. John Coleman in the book, The Story of the Committee of 300, number 6, to encourage and eventually legalize the use of drugs and make pornography an art form. My question is, does life imitate art, or does art imitate life? If you're going to make pornography an art form, and then make it an art form to whom? Your little babies, my little babies? How does that work?
It was like a nightmare. I was down in Galveston 2 weeks ago on a vacation, and the last day I was there, a convention of cheerleaders came, but it was little kids at a competition, and there were like 10-year-olds dressed like prostitutes everywhere. And they were being rude to my daughters because they thought they were there for the competition. And I mean, it was freaking me out. In fact, we even came home a day early. I mean, people are training their daughters to be whores.
Wow.
Although education has proven to be highly effective in controlling human behavior, more intensive research would need to be conducted away from the prying eyes of the public.
The Tavistock Institute was set up by the British Empire to really study mind control and to scientifically drill down into human behavior and put in textbook form systems of basic control so that could be duplicated out to government and corporate entities. And Tavistock has been involved at every level of social engineering.
The Tavistock Clinic was founded in 1920 and operated as part of the Psychological Warfare Division of the British military. It was initially a voluntary outpatient clinic for treatment and research and was made up of general physicians, neurologists, and psychiatrists to facilitate the treatment of neurosis and shell-shocked British soldiers returning home from World War I.
Going through their own publications on Amazon, you can find that some of their books cost like $18,000, $20,000. And what that tells me is they don't want the average person to be anywhere near getting their hands on this book, because what it gives you inside those books is the teacher's edition, to use an abstraction, as opposed to the students sitting around the class not knowing what the answers to the questions are. There's a group of people who are being given the answers to all the questions about how we act, react, and how we've been understimulated with curiosity in order to make us more subordinative.
Entertainment is kept below the 6th grade level. When you start hearing songs like Laffy Taffy and these kind of songs would hit your lower chakras and vibrate that negative energy, activating your pituitary gland, releasing those hormones. Now you got grown-ass men making songs for 12 and 13-year-olds.
Teach, bro.
I.e. Jay-Z. You understand what I'm saying? So the public is kept busy working, and the result is no time to think. And that's exactly what they produced. And they wrote about it inside of a book called the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, Shaping the Moral, Spiritual, Cultural, Political, and Economic Decline of the United States by John Coleman. Now, John Coleman is the gentleman that wrote the Committee 300. And the Committee 300 is that organ that decide what the trends are going to be in the black community. So when you start seeing people wearing mohawks and tight pants and acting, wearing 2 earrings and acting like women, that was manufactured and put among us.
Sheets, brother. Sheets, brother.
You understand what I'm saying? So we have to understand that. How they did it, they said they devised a system. And the aim of the 12, a total system that they devised jointly by British intelligence operatives from Tavistock University or Tavistock Institute in England. They put these 12 tones among us, all right, and created this thing, punk rock and this other uncontrollable music. Look up Operation Paperclip and it'll tell you all about it. But Adorno was a system of music that could program the mass music culture capable of eroding the morals of its listeners until they decline to a point where they will totally be degraded by it. And that's what's going on today. The music is bringing us down to an animalistic level, to the point where we don't even care about the art form. We just want a paycheck.
Yes, sir.
So now it's cool for a Jim Jones to come out talking about nah, 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 and grown folks go for it. You understand what I'm saying? It's cool for these cats to come out with songs talking about I'm stupid, you stupid, we stupid. Why does that appeal to grown men and grown women?
Well, that's the thing. It's funny. You said all this stuff about rappers and stuff that I thought was pretty scary. And then it all started coming out in the news right after you said it about how it's a weird sex cult and Illuminati.
Right, exactly.
And now they're all bragging that's what they're in.
Yeah, I think now they're trying to make it, well, how you call you say it so much it becomes less important. They're
acclimating. They're just throwing it out there.
It's a fad. Everybody needs to do this. Yeah, right. No, it's still dangerous and people are still losing their lives and losing their minds and ultimately losing their souls.
I don't know why they're into this. Reportedly, Lady Gaga, it's been confirmed by multiple friends and managers. Someone has to sleep in the room with her, and she's tortured by demons. Right. And thinks she's followed around by ghosts. Well, yeah, you're telling little girls to worship the devil. Bad stuff's going to happen to you.
Exactly. So they're admitting these things. These things are out there. People are just not taking it serious. This is actual demon possession. And they're going through rituals in front of millions of people in front of our
Tony Blair admitted that he falls to the ground every morning and is possessed by the angel of light. This is mainstream news. And he said, yeah, what's the big deal? And flops around on the ground. The devil's called the angel of light. I mean, you can't make this up.
No, definitely can't.
Joe Bacan put out a DVD called The Corporation. He said children as tomorrow's consumers represent a huge market today and therefore a fair game. You understand what I'm saying? So they are attacking the children using tones and frequencies. And parents want to see their children happy. We go out and use our credit cards and our hard-earned dollars to make sure our children are happy. So we get the sneakers and the new sneakers and the new video games and the new songs that come out and this kind of thing. Thinking that we're making our children happy, we're feeding our children's minds and souls to the wolves.
If you don't submit to control, if you're a radical, you're less likely to be loved. You're not fitting in with society. You're viewed as an outsider. There's a lot of social prohibitions about the outsider and the person who's going to upset things.
From the time we're very young, we're taught to, worship authority basically because that's our key to survival as young children. But as adults, we never go through the rites of passage that tell us how to methodically think for ourselves, and thus we're always in a state of extended adolescence.
Well, we take all this stuff, whether it's the television or it's the enculturation, the schoolyards, the teachers, we take this whole system, we put it into our unconscious mind. And it is the G-I-G-O that comes out, garbage in, garbage out. We simply, in that computer language, have harnessed our own power by accepting all these beliefs as though they are factual, whether it's the flat earth of Columbus, or it's the idea that I'm not good enough to be or to do something I've dreamed to do.
To the degree that the individual loses a sense of what freedom really means for himself, mind control is working. This is the constant battle and the struggle. What does my freedom mean to me? What is it? How deep does it go? How far?
I sit on a council of 13 people that take orders only from the Rothschild Tribunal in London, which they claim they take their orders directly from Lucifer.
I was the manager of Zodiac Productions, which Zodiac Productions, its name's been changed since then. I'm not even sure what they call it now, but it's the largest music conglomerate in the world. It owns RCA Records, Columbia Records, Motown Records, owns almost all the concert booking agencies in the United States. And that's not even the name of the company that owns it. The name of the company that owns it is Brenner Enterprises, and Brenner Enterprises is owned by Chase Manhattan. Chase Manhattan's owned by Standard Oil, and Standard Oil's owned by the Lords of London. You can track it on back. You kind of get the idea after a while. But I was the managing president of Zodiac Productions. It was one of my jobs as being one of these 13 people. Thus, I got to know many of the people who produce music and sing the music and play the music that you play. Now, one of the closest friends that I got during that time that I obtained was a man named David Crosby. Crosby, Still, Nash & Young. I saw David the day before Christmas last year, talked with him. I got him away from this witch that he had with him. He told her to go shopping. We were in West Hollywood, and I was witnessing around to people I knew. We went off in this store, and we started talking. I said, David, I'd like to ask you a couple questions. I said, I already know the answers, but I've been gone for 5 years. I'd like to know if certain things are still the way they were when I left. I said, now I have to explain some of this when I'm done, because you're not going to understand it all unless you know something about music. I said, do they still take the master to the temple room? Dave said, yeah. I said, do they still have the coven conjure demons into the master? He said, of course. I said, now, I got to know something. What's the main reason for rock music? He said, come on, Lance, you know what the reason is. I said, please, David, I don't want to guess. Tell me what the main reason is. He says, the same as when you were in, so that we can play spells on people that we couldn't cast spells upon. I'll explain what that means in a minute. I said, okay, one last thing. I've been hearing that you must be an initiated witch now to get a record contract. He said, that's right. He says, many of us that weren't total witches have to be witches now in order to produce music. I said, thank you. The master is a tape about as big as the top of this podium that looks like an overgrown 8-track that the album is cut on, and it's placed in a machine that produces and presses the records and the 8-tracks and cassettes that you buy. After it's been recorded, it's taken in. This is why a master's cut months in advance before it's released. On the full moon, it's taken in to a temple room about the size of this auditorium that is in every one of the major music companies, behind locked doors up in the executive offices. And it's placed on an altar sitting in the north of the room, and a pentagram engraved in the floor. And 13 hand-chosen witches and wizards in a coven come in and conjure a principality or a power up, usually Regia or something like that, and order him to tell the demons under him to follow every record and every tape coming off of that master.
I sold my soul to the devil. I know it's a crappy deal. This it came with a few toys like a Happy Meal.
You know, what was going on in my life at 15, and that's how I got introduced to the music industry. I swear I wanted to be like the Amy Grant of music. Yeah. But it didn't work out, and so I sold my soul to the devil.
How I came about being a lyricist is weird, because I started out technically, like I used to write all the time, you know, before I started going into the Rain Man thing, you know.
Why do you still do it? Why are you still out here?
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. You know, I made a bargain with it, you know, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end.
What was your bargain?
To get where I am now.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
with the chief commander.
On this earth?
And on this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
Yeah, well, sometimes they don't want to, and they're, you know, Gaga, we can't get, you know, the frequency's weird, and, you know, it's sounding a little bit strange, and I'm like, if you don't get this right now, I swear to Lucifer, I'm gonna, you know, I get a little bit mad, and I'm like, if you don't get this right now, I swear to Lucifer, I'm gonna.
What has this done to your career?
What has it done to my career?
What has it done to your career?
In what way?
How has it impacted, touring, record sales?
Album's #1 all over the world. All over the world. America's the only one because, I don't want to say too much.
But it's not #1 in the United States.
It's conspiracy, yeah. I don't want to say too much. I'm done. I don't want to say much because I'm hurting. I'm really hurting.
I had to ask some friends because I was hearing a lot about her, and so they told me, you know, who she was and what she was doing. And I come from the school of thought there's just some things that the public just shouldn't know. You know what I'm saying? Like things that happen between two people, a wife and a husband, girl. I just don't think that it's for mass consumption. I just have always felt that way, and I just think that the whole idea of celebrity and fame has become really convoluted and, you know, kind of bastardized, like whereas fame used to be the byproduct of success, and now it's the ultimate goal. And if your ultimate goal is to be famous, then you're gonna do a lot to get there, like sign your name in blood in a contract with the devil. Like you're gonna end up on a one-way street and it's going nowhere. Like that's just the truth. I've seen so many people like forsake their moral code and their value systems just for a little bit of fame, and it's not worth it at the end of the day. It's really not worth it.
Martin Lawrence is the guy that showed everybody you can make it from D.C. to Hollywood. And I had a personal stake in his success. Every time he did something, it made me feel inspired and really good. And he was always real nice to me. He'd sit me down, what's going on with you, baby boy? What? We'd talk about comedy, whatever. And, you know, when we did Blue Streak, we were promoting it, and Martin had a stroke. He almost died. And then after that, I saw him, and I was like, oh, my God, Martin, are you okay? And he said, I got the best sleep I ever got in my life. That's how tough he is. So let me ask you this. What is happening in Hollywood that a guy that tough will be on the street waving a gun, screaming, they are trying to kill me? Yeah. What's going on? Why is Dave Chappelle going to Africa? Why does Mariah Carey make a $100 million deal and take her clothes off on TRL? A weak person cannot get to sit here and talk to you. Ain't no weak people talking to you. So what is happening in Hollywood? Nobody knows. The worst thing to call somebody is crazy, is dismissive. I don't understand this person, so they're crazy. That's bullshit. These people are not crazy. They're strong people. Maybe the environment is a little sick.
some of us are against the Illuminati, and we are against the Illuminati at our own detriment. When people are against the Illuminati, then they get punched in the face all the time. The press hates them, and nobody likes them. End quote.
We all love Dave Chappelle.
Exactly. Dave Chappelle has never been a part of the Illuminati. They don't want him or me or people like us. Yeah. But now it's not necessary for us to stir up that hornet's nest unless we intend to get stung 1,000,000 times. I didn't understand that. They had to sting me 1,000,000 times. Right. I'm still not going to join, but I respect it a little more.
All right.
You're managed by the company, and this surprised me. I only found this out. You're managed by the company. You look after S Club 7. You used to look after the Spice Girls, Simon Fuller. Have they tried to mould you in any way, though, if people ask you to do things to change the way you look or speak or behave?
Yeah, one of them tried to mold me into a big triangle shape, and I went, no. Nah, you know, I've got my own style.
Would you like me to show them how the sign of the curse works?
Sign of the curse?
Completely different.
How does it go?
No, not at you people out there in the audience, but this is the difference.
Aim it toward Red China, would you?
This is the sign of the horns. A curse sign, the 2 fingers extended. This way, spread apart for sort of shotgun blast, you know, all over.
University of Wisconsin professor Kevin Barrett, who has recently drawn criticism for plans to teach an Islamic studies course next fall that will incorporate conspiracy theories that the U.S. government was involved in the events of September 11th. Professor Barrett joins us now. Professor, can you give us the context within which you teach this?
Okay, what you've just seen here is he used a nonverbal gesture with his hands and an outward motion to kind of scatter his thinking, and then swayed both of his hands over to his left shoulder, which would give the subconscious impression of being far to the left, and also kind of distracts his thinking a little bit. So that's what he's doing. That's why his hands are all over the place, and then they swing over to his left shoulder to send the subconscious message that he is an extremist, a left-winger. Okay?
Can you give us the context within which you teach this?
Well, yeah, sure. I'm teaching an introductory course on Islam, and I think it's really important to cover these contemporary political issues, and one of them is, of course, the so-called war on terror. Now, the fact is that the great majority of the world's Muslims believe that 9/11 was an inside job.
But that's your opinion, right?
Again, manipulation is all about timing and redirecting and trying to take control of somebody when they're speaking. Here, you see a great example of that by saying that's your opinion, even though he just stated there's a vast number of people that are waking up, even though he specifies the Muslim community. That's not true. It's all over the world. So the journalist's responsibility to misdirect his thinking and to mislead you is to follow up and say, but that's your opinion, even though he stated that it wasn't just his opinion. But it doesn't matter, because people believe what they hear from newscasters. They take in the barrage of words, and the newscaster here understands that. So if he says that, he plants that seed.
Now, the fact is that the great majority of the world's Muslims believe that 9/11 was an inside job.
But that's your opinion, right?
Well, no, that's
your opinion that there was an inside job.
Well, after studying the evidence pretty intensively for 2.5 years, I am convinced that 9/11 was, in fact, an inside job.
And are students required to regurgitate that in some way in order to do well in your class?
Again, more manipulation. I'm sure you caught that. Even though this very system of the world creates people to regurgitate, they will often accuse people of doing the things that they do. That's just part of it, okay? So by saying our students required to regurgitate that gives the subconscious impression that he is controlling their minds and not teaching them to think, when in actuality, to be able to see through the media, to be able to see what is going on, is not regurgitation. Any person that does regurgitate and only memorize and not think would not be able to see through it anyway. It doesn't matter. This is reverse psychology. This is just not even that. It's just manipulation. It's just name calling. It's I'm rubber, you're glue. Again, this is a way that he disrupts the guy's thinking with petty comments like that. He knows that this type of person would never want anybody to regurgitate anything because that doesn't allow them to learn to think. Doesn't matter. If there's an audience to this, he plants that seed again.
Well, after studying the evidence pretty intensively for 2.5 years, I am convinced that 9/11 was, in fact, an inside job.
And are students required to regurgitate that in some way in order to do well in your class?
That's ridiculous. No, I'm not interested in making students regurgitate anything.
All right, Mr. Barrett, Sean Hannity here. Do you really believe that 9/11 was an inside job?
Okay, Sean Hannity. I never watched Fox News before, but within seconds of seeing this guy, you can just see that he is a snake. At least he is currently conducting himself as such. Now, this is pretty basic what he's doing. He's not giving eye contact. He's pretending to be bored with the guy's very presence. And this is a way to discredit him that way, as if he's just some sort of gnat and not even worth considering, and that's why he's purposely looking down and acting bored when he talks to him. Secondly, he uses the word believe. Do you really believe? To believe is not to know, and that's why he's stressing that. And again, you're going to start to see extreme manipulation from this Mr. Hannity.
All right, Mr. Barrett, Sean Hannity here. Do you really believe that 9/11 was an inside job, not just 9/11, but Madrid and Bali and the Zakawi operation?
Well, you know, actually...
hang on a second.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so what he does is he tries to take control of this conversation right away. He insinuates something, and the professor was smart enough to catch what he was saying, and then when he tried to respond to that, he interrupts him to take control. Now, notice, and I'll point this out in a little bit, when he puts his hand up in the OK sign, you're about to learn what that really means and what they use it for. But for now, just understand that that's how they'll do it. They'll insult you while they speak and try to continue speaking before you can actually reply to it. And therefore, it makes the professor look nuts. You know what I mean? Because if people don't catch this neuro-linguistic programming, if they don't catch the manipulation, you know, which is comprises the majority of the audience anyway, nevertheless, if they don't catch it, then he can do that. He can take those cheap shots, and when the professor tries to correct those, then he interrupts him, says, hey, hold on, you know, and then tries to make him look rude for interrupting and take control over him and disrupt his thinking at the same time.
Well, you know, actually... hang on a second. Do you believe personally that these are inside jobs, yes or no?
It's not quite that simple.
Okay, believe personally, that's another way to plant that into your psyche, that it is just he that believes this, and then he uses the yes or no trap, because that is, again, misleading if you can't see that. The way he twisted around that question would not allow the professor to be able to give a yes or no answer, because he injected manipulation into the question itself. So, when the professor tries to say that, of course, then it puts him under pressure. The professor is smart enough to catch that, and it isn't that simple, and he understands. The professor knew, of course, what I'm telling you right now. However, time is ticking. He only has so much time on the air, and their job is to disrupt his thinking as much as possible and make as many hidden accusations as they can and as many subconscious embeds into how to perceive the professor as they can in the short amount of time that he's on the air. And that's their only job, is to discredit and disrupt. Okay? But he did catch it. Now he has to respond to that rather than being able to say anything that matters. And that's what they do. Another good person at this is Stephen Colbert. If you watch Stephen Colbert with any of his interviews, his whole job is to discredit and disrupt. That's what he does. And you keep it moving. It's very, very petty, but these are the people that you allow to run you, okay? So know that, and that's what's going on right here.
Yes or no?
It's not quite that simple. I do know, I don't believe, I know that 9/11 was an inside job. Professor Stephen Jones has found residue of thermate on the steel samples from the World Trade Center. We now know that it was taken down in a controlled demolition.
All right, so you believe that the buildings came down in a controlled demolition?
Okay, so the professor did a really good job of identifying his manipulation by saying, I don't believe, I know. And because he was starting to get through that, Hannity interrupts him and says, I don't have a lot of time. Well, wait a minute. You just asked him a question, and now he's able to break through your manipulation, and suddenly you don't have a lot of time for the very answer to the question that you just asked. The next thing you see, he asks him, what evidence does he have? And he interrupted him giving the evidence to ask him what evidence he has. Why? Of course, he's not interested in hearing the evidence or anybody else hearing it. He's interested in interrupting him and planting another embed into the psyche that what he happens to be saying right now is somehow not evidence. It's all misdirection of focus, redirection of focus, disrupting, interrupting, gaining control, and, you know, it's this very petty, they rely on these petty techniques. Now, at the end of this, he does something that a lot of you probably aren't aware of. He does a hand gesture. He takes both of his hands, and he puts them up in front of his head, and then pulls them down, and he pretends he's talking about the buildings falling down. What that is I don't know what they would term it. I'm just intuitive. I'm perceptive. I can see what they're doing. That's sorcery. Sorcery is just anything that is used to circumvent the conscious mind, to control the mind. That gesture is designed to take away his zest, his focus, his power. By bringing his hands down like that, he's trying to subconsciously take away the focus of the professor, take away his power. And that's exactly what he's doing, and that's what you're seeing, and I'll play that again for you.
Inside job. Professor Stephen Jones has found residue of thermate on the steel samples from the World Trade Center. We now know that it was taken down in a controlled demolition.
Right, so you believe that the buildings came down in a controlled demolition, right?
Well, I don't believe it. I've looked at the evidence, and the evidence is overwhelming.
All right, the evidence is overwhelming to you because you're a conspiracy nut, but
no,
you know,
actually, all of you, I ask your viewers to take...
Okay. Now, in this one, I'm sure you caught the obvious part, but you probably did not catch the neuro-linguistic programming. What exactly is neuro-linguistic programming? Simply put, it's dual meaning that is speaking to the subconscious. Now, of course, he's shaping public opinion by saying, it's obvious to you because you are a conspiracy nut. Well, remember now, people are very phobic of being called anything that goes against the norm. So if you agree with him, oh, then you're a nut, and people, you know, they can't escape their own ego. So that's used to shape him. What you probably didn't catch is him saying, but, you know, putting that all aside, this is neuro-linguistic programming. Now, pay attention here. You're a conspiracy nut, but putting that all aside, what that is doing is he's directing your subconscious mind and your conscious mind to store that label, that impression of him. Put it aside. Keep that. It's called anchoring. In neuro-linguistic programming, because I've watched a little bit of it, I didn't need to watch it to pick up on how they do this, but it allows you to get some of their terminology down. They call this anchoring. Anchoring a thought, anchoring a concept, anchoring a feeling. Putting all of that aside means put that aside in your mind. He's a conspiracy nut. Do you see how they manipulate you? That's a very good lesson right there in neuro-linguistic programming.
All right. Right. The evidence is overwhelming to you because you're
Sure
a conspiracy nut, but
no,
you know,
actually,
all
all
that
of you,
aside,
I ask your viewers to take a look at this evidence for themselves. They can go to st911.org. That's
all right,
Scholars for 9/11 Truth. Take a look at the demolitions.
I know you
Morgan Reynolds, a former Bush administration official.
Okay, that's pretty obvious. You see how he's treating him. Very nonchalant, irritated, bored. And I know you think you're the smartest guy in the world. This is, you know, the typical you're a know-it-all type of comment. If you watch that David Icke video where he goes back on Wogan, he draws attention to the same thing where he said, whoa, that's a cheap shot when he said, you know it all. And the response was accurate. I'm not saying I know it all. But people are trained to hate people who, quote, know it all. Why? Because they want you to be dumb. That's why in society you have catchphrases that go around that people use, like, you think too much, you're too deep, you know it all. These have all become derogatory terms in this new Orwellian society. Haven't you noticed that? His response is petty and childish, but he means to be this way. It does nothing, it addresses nothing. He can't think of anything to say in response to the professor, so he has to take a cheap shot like this. I know you think you're the smartest guy in the world. That should be obvious to you, that is just overdoing it, creating, manifesting an insult, just again for one reason and one reason only, to disrupt his thinking and to program your mind on how to view him.
Take a look at the demolitions.
I know you
Morgan Reynolds, a former Bush administration official, says that the Bush administration blew the World Trade Center to kingdom come. That's a direct quote from a member of the Bush administration itself.
I know.
Blew the World Trade Center to kingdom come. The Jews were told to leave. Well, we've heard a lot of these sick, bizarre theories.
Okay, so suddenly he's an anti-Semite? When did that come about? I didn't hear him say anything about the Jews. What he's doing here is he's trying to link him to anti-Semitism. That's what they want to do. Now, anybody that's really trying to speak the truth in this world has no interest in focusing on a group or even an individual. What they try to focus on is the problem in general, outside of any group or individual that may be manifesting the symptoms of the problem. But again, what he's trying to do here is, in your mind, link the professor to being part of a hate group, someone that's going to target a group or an individual, and make you link the terms sick and bizarre to the professor. He didn't say anything about the Jewish community. Nothing. So catch that. See how he's trying to link the professor to it.
The World Trade Center to kingdom come. That's a direct quote from a member of the Bush administration itself.
I know.
Blew
and there
the
were
World
people
Trade
that
Center
said
to
that the
kingdom
Jews
come.
were told to leave. Well, we've heard a lot of these sick, bizarre theories.
That's
and I
not
don't
the
believe
same
any
thing.
of them, but you're allowed to believe what you want, but that's not what's at hand here.
Okay, now another thing, just to make you aware, again, of just how much they're programming your mind. To you, it looks like a man that said that's not the issue at hand here. You need to start learning their language. Their language is dual meaning, which goes hand in hand with neuro-linguistic programming. The issue at hand here, what he's doing is directing the professor to look at his hand. Now, why would he have the professor look at his hand? Well, if you look at his hand right now, you see it as what you've been told is the OK sign, right? Well, let's show you what it really means. The OK symbol, as you see right here, means 666. For some reason, 666 has some sort of control over the mind. Now, it could have something to do with the beast computers many of you have read about. It's sorcery. It is putting a hex on somebody. It is subconscious symbolism that somehow affects some people. It doesn't affect everybody. But he's using that, and he was directing the professor to look at his hand to use sorcery on him. It's not that one thing will work. They try to use as many combinations of things as they can. But that is a symbol, and it means 666, and that is why he told him to look at his hand, or the issue at hand here told told his mind subconsciously to look at his hand. Do you see? And that is what just occurred there. That's not what's at hand here, meaning you are not allowed to believe what you want. And that also tells the population looking at him, because remember, he is also talking to people that are watching television. And so they are also instructed to look at his hand subconsciously or take notice of it subconsciously. And when he says you're allowed to believe what you want, but that's not what's at hand here, he's saying with the 666 rule over your mind, you are not allowed to believe what you want. And that speaks to your subconscious mind and programs people to not think. And that's what it means all around and all together. That's what just happened.
But you're allowed to believe what you want, but that's not what's at hand here. The issue is whether or not you, with your bizarre theories, are the best.
I think you have the bizarre theory. You think it was 19
Hang on a
bucks?
second.
Okay, again saying his issues, his views are bizarre, right? But the reason he puts up his pinky there is because that is the weakest finger, that it would imply a small penis, not a potent man, using that in reference to him, saying that he is impotent, that he is bizarre, that he is weak, and that he is of the pinky. And that's why he chooses, of all fingers and all gestures, to speak about his theories, he puts his pinky up. And these are all subconscious sorcery methods. Again, sorcery is not some guy wearing a magician's hat. Part of sorcery is speaking to and manipulating the conscious mind from the subconscious.
It's a
Whether or
of
not
science.
you, with your bizarre theories, are the best.
I think you have the
most
bizarre theory. You think it was 19
Hang on a
bucks?
second.
Guys with box cutters led by a
you're
guy on
very angry,
dialysis
man.
in a cave in Afghanistan? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the craziest conspiracy theory of all of them.
Okay, I wish I had the Twilight Zone music. Now, here's my next...
See, all he can say is something to discredit him. I wish I had the Twilight Zone music. And then the people watching the televisions that say, yes, that must be weird. Twilight Zone music is weird. And the honest and credible news reporter is saying that about him. Okay? Now you see that all the neuro-linguistic programming is starting to get to the professor. He's starting to screw up his words. He's starting to screw up his concentration. He's mispronouncing. That's because there's a lot of negative energy being focused on him, interrupting his thought process. So you can see how he's starting to screw up his words, but he's still holding, with all of that working against him and being unaware of those techniques, he still holds his own, but you start to see it get to him a little bit.
I mean, that's the craziest conspiracy theory of all of them.
Okay, I wish I had the Twilight Zone music. Now, here's my next question. The issue that is at hand here, you're entitled to have your opinion. I don't really care what you believe. But if we're talking about a captive group of students in a class...
Again, making a bored face as if he's nothing. He's the pinky. He's lower than low. I really don't care what you believe. But if we're talking about a captive group of students... Okay, first he said that they implied that he wants his students to regurgitate. Now he's holding them captive, which goes hand in hand with what? Terrorism, hostages... He's subconsciously painting this professor to be what? A terrorist. So not only have they discredited him, but people are already getting in their minds that with this neuro-linguistic programming, now you understand what neuro-linguistic programming is. Neural, brain, linguistic, speech, programming the brain with speech via the subconscious. Dual meaning.
I don't really care what you believe. But if we're talking about a captive group of students in a classroom, the question we've got to ask... Hang on a second. Well, they're sitting in your classroom, and you have a position of authority. I'm wondering, the question is whether or not you're the most competent to teach them. And most people think you're a nut.
Now, this one should be obvious. Isn't he a person that's in a position of authority? And isn't he about as incompetent as you can get as far as love and honesty and caring about other life forms? Yet he turns it around because people believe what they hear and what they read. So if he says it first, and that's a big part of this, is trying to say things first before somebody else can say something, then it seems like they will always be on the defensive. And that's the whole point, is to keep the professor on the defensive. All right? And saying that he is detrimental to his students, when the truth is Fox News is incredibly detrimental to you, just in this short clip I'm showing you here, and people are watching this all day long.
And most people think you're a nut. Most people think your views are not even worth listening to.
We just had a poll here in Madison, and we found that 90% of the respondents at Channel 3000 poll said that I should be allowed to teach. Only 10% said I shouldn't.
That's the question.
And 60%,
I don't think what your views are.
60% agreed with me about the questions I'm raising about 9/11. 60% of the respondents.
I think
you're in the minority.
Right to speak. I don't think this is the proper forum, though, for people that hold extremist views like yourself.
Okay, first of all, when he says no, like that, what he's doing is he's programming the television viewers' collective consciousness to disregard the results of that poll. He says no, and then your mind says no to the information he just gave. These are just little tricks he slips in there. And most people think he's a nut. What? But see, people watch that, of course, and they store that in their mind as fact. Of course, most people do not think he is a nut. But if he says that, he programs anybody watching this television program, hint, hint, that everybody thinks he's a nut. So I will too, to fit in. Where did he get that number? How does he know most people think that he's a nut? Think about it. They don't. He just says it, and then the professor has to respond to that. He's totally disrupting the whole interview. So it appears to people, because time is moving by, that there's actually an interview going on here. But it's not. It's only about disrupting and discrediting and programming your opinion. Okay, first of all, I used to live in Madison, Wisconsin, and I can tell you that people did not think that he was crazy. It was the television that began to program people to think that he was crazy. Again, now, extremist views like yourself. Now, they already set the stage in your mind or the viewer's mind before he brought that up in the beginning, when that first reporter took his hands and whipped him over to the left side of his shoulder to subconsciously say that he's an extreme leftist. He's on the extreme left. So now they're reinforcing that, telling you to believe that he is extremist, that these are extreme things. Well, Fox is 666. Look, I mean, just look what they're doing. Look what I'm pointing out to you. Once you start to understand the dual meaning of neuro-linguistic programming, things become crystal clear to you.
About the questions I'm raising about 9/11, 60% of the respondents.
I think
you're in the minority.
Right to speak. I don't think this is the proper forum, though, for people that hold extremist views like yourself. Reasonable
you guys are extremists.
Reasonable people. Now notice what he did there. He took his hands and he gestured them towards himself and said reasonable people while pointing to himself. Therefore, your subconscious and your conscious mind is shaped to see Sean Hannity as the reasonable person. They're always using gestures against you in coordination with dual meaning in things they say and direct meaning. So again, reasonable people, all he has to do is point to himself, and that's a subtle, nonverbal gesture to make you associate being reasonable with Sean Hannity's point of view. He's programming your mind. So now after you have associated being reasonable with Sean Hannity, and when he says people think, he points out or opens his hand, so you are to think. See, reasonable people, he points to himself and then opens it up to you, think. You shouldn't be allowed to teach this class. We can do a better job. People will be programmed by that.
Reasonable
you guys are extremists. Fox News is the biggest bunch of extremists on the planet.
But reasonable people see you as an extremist, and I don't think you're the most appropriate guy to teach that class. My guess
I don't think you're the most appropriate guy to be on the airwaves spewing your venom.
And the professor got it right. You can see the look on his face. He says, spewing your venom. That's exactly what he's doing. The problem is that you can't get all of this out in an interview. For example, say I was on an interview like this. They would be doing all the same things to me. All I would be doing is calling attention to everything he's doing, and then he would sit there and argue with me. Nothing would ever get discussed. This is how they take advantage of people. Look how long it's taken me. Do you know this clip is only like 2 minutes long, normally? But just to describe 2 very short minutes of media to you, look how long this is taking. That's the problem. That's why I haven't done it before. Because I can sit here and explain it to you, but you need to open up your eyes so you can see it for yourself, because it all happens way too quickly. If you try to explain something that happens in a 3-second period, if you're not educated on that, if you're not aware of it, it will go by way too fast before you can bring somebody up to speed to understand what's going on. This is why I had to break it down for you, but I still can't do this with everything I see, because this is everywhere. This is common. This is always going on. And it just, you need to educate yourself, but you need to become aware. Again, dual meaning, neuro-linguistic programming, gesturing, association of concepts and beliefs to link them, anchor them in your mind, to misdirect your perception, your beliefs, and your ability to perceive reality in general.
Class, my guess
I don't think you're the most appropriate guy to be on the airwaves spewing your venom throughout this country. I think you guys should be taken off the airwaves because you are the guys who are...
We don't want to silence anybody. You teach and we'll do Hannity and Combs. Thank you, Professor. Coming up, we'll have a...
We don't want to silence anybody. That's exactly what they have just done. Though you heard a lot of speaking going on, nothing was able to get out into the open. They completely took control of this poor man. And he's brave, okay, to get out there, lose his job, and to speak the truth. And they hound him like bees. They're using techniques that are hidden, that are sorcery. They're of sorcery in their nature. They're hypnotic. They're using negative energy, manipulative techniques, childish argument techniques. And so you've seen a lot of talking, but nothing got out into the open. And you see how nervous they made him. Why? Because he had to keep dealing with their techniques, and he couldn't express the truth. And this is how anybody who tries to get on the media to speak the truth is manipulated, and that's why most don't even bother. They don't bother because they would just get into an argument. I mean, what's the point? The expert that I've seen at this is Stephen Colbert. He was one of the biggest disinformation agents out there. He'll get somebody in for an interview and just completely distract, disrupt, discredit, and there is no interview. That's what I call Stephen Colbert's interviews. They're not interviews. They're Stephen Colbert using techniques to distract and discombobulate, basically. So this is why you don't get the truth in the media. Even if people do get a chance at airtime, they will be interrupted, misdirected, hypnotic suggestions to the audience that are watching it. You just can't. People that know the truth won't even try. They won't even try to go on the mainstream media, and people that do, it ends up like this. So until that is addressed, then nothing will ever be told on mainstream media. But what you can learn from this, don't watch TV.